the Task Management and Time Blocking Podcast, Episode 4. How do you stay productive when you work for a company that puts in place a policy which changes the way you manage your tasks? In other words, it forces you to change the way you manage your tasks. You want to be as effective as possible, of course, but is there restrict access to the tools, the task management tools, the calendar, task management app, the any of the supporting software? If they restrict access to the task management tools you prefer, you need some strategies to prevent unwanted mistakes from happening. Tune in to this episode of the Task Management and Time Blocking Podcast. Listen to me and my special guest, Augusto Pinaud, as we solve this challenging problem together. Keep listening. Welcome back. Let's start with a story. What do you mean they've banned all task management apps? Asked Rob. That's what I mean, replied Sue. IT has decided that due to security concerns, anyone who is using Todoist, Remember the Milk, OmniFocus, anything like that, can no longer use them on corporate servers. Security concerns, they said. It's right here in the email message to all staff. Rob shook his head, trying to quell the heat welling up inside. He couldn't let Sue see his face turning red. He was determined not to lose it in front of his new boss. It makes no sense. What are we supposed to use instead? He complained. I have no idea. Their version of Outlook doesn't even include the task management feature, so that's out. Do you mean to say that I'm going to be forced to manually enter every task on my smartphone one at a time? Sue shrugged her shoulders before walking away. Our productivity is not their problem, apparently. So folks, welcome to the podcast. And if you're watching the video, as you can see, I have a special guest who has joined us, Augusto Pinaud. And I'm going to introduce Augusto by way of his bio before we jump into solving this particular problem. So Augusto is I'll say that again so that I can edit this when the time comes because I didn't have it in front of me. And I don't want to look too far away. All right, there we go. So as you see, we have a guest, Augusto Pinaud, who has already joined us. And by way of introductions, I want to introduce Augusto. He helps people create small changes that produce a great impact. He's bilingual and happens to be a Nozbe Teams Specialist. He has a coaching practice which centers on personal productivity, organizational productivity, the counter-intuitive nature of GTD, and some digital coaching on tools like Nozbe, Todoist, OmniFocus, and iPadOnly, among others. As a coach, he focuses on teaching people how to create real impact in their lives by helping them connect invisible dots in their lives. And thanks to him, he suggested the topic that we're on today because I suspect it's one that he says he's seen happening all over the place. Augusto, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Francis. And yes, I wish to tell you that I have not heard Rob and Sue's story, but it's coming and it's happening more and more. And between companies getting ransomware, companies getting things like in the last weeks, we have seen Log4js on servers and stuff. And not having in many cases really a good understanding how to protect yourself from all these threats, the decision many companies are doing is closing up. Let's close the tools, let's limit the tools, let's limit what people or how people can move information among the tools, and it's making work more challenging.
Well, let's talk about this because the whole business of before we even had the cloud as a concern. Back in the day when you and I probably, maybe me, you're a young guy, but when I was when I was starting off in the workplace, we didn't even have laptops. So the tools that you had were all encapsulated in a binder. So I had a day timer. So I remember taking a course in my company, And one of the gifts of taking the course was that you got this big book, that you could write all of your to-dos in.
Right.
And it was a mild hint on the company's part that they wanted you to be productive. And here was this free tool, this asset you could use to be productive. And you're kind of just told good luck, and then that was it. Then we got laptops, and they came with certain tools on them. And if we were lucky, those were evolved. Well, first we got desktop computers, then laptops, then some of us got phones like the BlackBerry, which had productivity tools built into them. If you were really lucky, you got that. And then we got feature phones, and then we got smartphones. And
I was a geek, so I got a PDA before a lot of that. I got a paper planner, um, but as soon as on my first job as a paralegal, as soon as I could put enough money together to buy a PDA, I bought a PDA and never looked back. That came before even work-wise, before the desktop and the laptop came the PDA.
uh-huh. So you got your own PDA, which I remember doing for myself as well.
Yeah.
I think
I
much
got
later
my
than
own
you, but
PDA. I got my own PDA with my little keyboard, and I remember I was I studied to be so my first formal grown-up job was paralegal, and I was studying to be a lawyer. And I remember getting there. There was I don't know how many of us we were 10 or 14 paralegals. It was a really big law firm, and there were two desktops. So when everybody come at the office at the end of the day, you were fighting for those two things because basically the person who sit first in there could go home. And if you were the last one, you need to wait until everybody put their information. And so I got the PDA with that little foldable keyboard, and I was able to put everything in there and synchronize. And because it was 5 minutes, nobody cared that I did it and just copy paste my information. I wasn't typing, wasn't nothing. So that thing was paid off in my book, at least the first day.
yeah. I had an HP that didn't connect
Mhm.
to anything as my first PDA, and it wasn't even called a PDA back then. It had no productivity tools in it that I can recall, and it certainly didn't synchronize. It couldn't be backed up, and if you turned it off and lost everything, that was it. It was all gone. And if we had
Yeah,
a
you see, the
computer,
Palm Pilot, the first one I have was a Palm Pilot Pro,
oh,
and
upgrade.
it has two double AAA batteries, but you could sync up with a computer
Right.
that that has issues in itself because um, I had the PDA, but I didn't have a computer in the office, anything else. So I rely on coming back home to be able to synchronize at the PC at home to make backup. So if I make things during the day that I could lose and I could not get home to back up, then I was dead in
I
the water.
I remember that well. And there was no expectation that you would manage your productivity
No.
following a company standard. I mean, you're right. I remember when there was a computer room in the first job that I had, and you went to the computer room to use the computer. And you're right. I remember you had to put your name on the list, and you know the whole. And then you got a desktop, but even then, the software that was placed on it, you couldn't really put your own software. At some point, IT would step in and say, no, you can't do that. But then came the cloud, and all of a sudden we had access to all these great tools, especially productivity tools. And for the most part, for, for most companies, again, I'm thinking IT was very sort of okay. They were okay. You could use whatever. They were kind of agnostic. You could use whatever you wanted. And then there were some that came with the Microsoft Suite or the Lotus Suite back in the day. And then Google came along, and now you could use anything from the Google Suite, and you were good. And now things are changing. So tell us about this vulnerability that
So
has come
it's
about.
not all IT. So I went to be a lawyer, end up being coaching, but it's what I see on my clients. You could see so many companies going in ransomware, issues with ransomware.
Right.
Log4j is nothing other than another vulnerability that allows hackers to have the possibility to enter into your system. And what I'm seeing with all this is fear. And we know that people, many people is not careful with the emails they got. The phishing that happened in the email is well known. So corporations, when when corporations felt that the information and risk was the individual, they were not as concerned. Now they feel that this information can risk the company information. They're getting a lot tougher, and even in many cases, coming to these policies as we are describing in the problem today and saying, okay, effective, I have a client, effective January 30th. Okay, our computers are going to be all wiped out and no software could be installed that is not pre-approved. We were talking on cross-platform um, on
So
the news
that's your
segment
podcast, right?
about, that's another podcast I do with Art Gelwicks.
Hmm.
And we have cross-platform is about, you know, the people or anybody who work in cross-platform has an iPad and an Android and a PC and a Mac. What happened, how you move productivity wise, between all these platforms. But we have a segment on news, and we were talking about a hotel in Europe who got a ransomware, and their solution was to get rid of Windows and move to Chrome. Okay, sounds easy, no problem. But now imagine you come to your work on Thursday and they say, we got attacked yesterday, or you come on Monday, we got attacked yesterday, and now you have no more Windows. Now you are going to use a Chromebook and go online. That is going to be so disruptive. And it is no different than what we are discussing here. It is no different than they told you you cannot use the application of your choice. Those things have a direct impact in productivity, in happiness of your employees, in many things, because you are telling people now you cannot do your job in the way you have been doing your job for X amount of months.
And they're also effectively barring you from solutions that are better than the solutions that they might be offering on, let's say, they may offer a task management solution, or they may offer a calendar, but they're essentially locking you into using that calendar, that solution. I
Correct.
mean, I guess we're used to being locked into using the same email if you're in a corporate situation, because you've had to use the same email package because everyone needs to be on the same email platform. So that's been standardized for a while. But even that, I've not been to a company, I've not seen a company where the productivity of the employees is the number one concern. I'm not seeing a case where, for example, there's a, a VP who cares so much about productivity that he or she lobbies for this particular email software because it's better than the other email software.
Mhm.
Instead, it's being made by some decision is made by somebody in IT, and their decision is not driven. They're not productivity people in the
Correct.
sense that they care about individual productivity. They may care about corporate productivity on some broader level, but even then, they're not experts in email management or task management. So they're definitely not taking those inputs when they're making these decisions. Not true?
They're not. They're not. Not only that, there is a bigger problem than that. What most people understand when you talk about productivity is some kind of understanding of personal productivity. That's
Hmm.
it. And personal productivity is a silo. Okay, it's about me being productive, and that's it. The problem is you're talking about a whole organization. I've been talking about this and working with this. I said there is a coin. If you imagine a coin, or you're watching the video, you can see the coin. Okay,
Hmm.
this coin has two sides. One side is personal productivity, but personal productivity goes from the border of that coin to the center. Okay, it's about me, it's about my silo, it's about my system. And as I ask people, think, bring me anybody who do personal productivity, and I will ask them this question: have you ever shown your system to anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and over the years asking these questions, that is really funny when I come the memories of the people I have asked this question on their faces. It is like, I think if you ask the people, can you get naked, they will be way more willing than open their personal system. So
Maybe
that's
an
a problem.
exaggeration slightly, but
I don't know. I don't know. Let me tell you, I have yet to find the first person who is going to do it willingly. The problem with that is personal productivity. It's all about me, about my strength, and of
Mhm,
how I'm going to be able to move forward to get ahead of the rest.
mhm,
That's the brutal definition of personal
mhm,
productivity.
mhm,
When you come to these organizations, then yes, you get an X percentage who believe in that, who, yes, they are defective. Yes, they are the overachievers, but they are not in general the people putting the policies. So the policies don't adapt to these people and don't adapt either to the people under, because in many cases they don't have. So what I've been thesis for a while now is on the concept of organizational productivity. And let me describe it this way. Organizational productivity is all about task-based management. What it is, you have a task, you have a project that you need to move forward, and you include into that communication everybody. It's, instead of be a silo and closed system, it's an open system. You go from the center of the coin towards the outside of the coin and continue expanding. Why? Because it's not about what are my strengths, it's about where are the weakness on the organization and how we can move forward.
the
So
company only cares about plugging the weaknesses and at the corporate level, and doesn't
correct.
have an advocate for the personal product the personal productivity of its individual employees. So it's kind of myopic, is kind of what I hear you saying.
It is
It's,
completely myopic because
and they're
IT,
making
what is
decisions and
thinking,
investments based on this overall picture. But if it ruins the personal productivity of each person, that's
who
not our
cares?
problem.
If it doesn't affect the bottom line and I can get out of not supporting that one more application, we are good. That is the in many cases the IT
Right.
cost. And by the way,
Cut the
let's
cost.
clarify. This is not ITs. It's not that the ITs are the bad people.
Right.
Okay, in many
Right.
cases they are
Right.
understaffed and under resourced. Okay, you
Right.
put three more applications, the guys can.
Right.
So, so I'm not talking bad about the IT people. I'm talking bad about the organization. We
Right.
to this day have not yet to come to understand how important productivity is for the bottom line and for the organization.
Right. So I could see this conversation happening. IT sends the CEO an email saying, we found a way to cut all these costs and cut all these risks and increase our security. And the way we do that is by limiting access to apps. And I imagine the CEO or the executive team looking at this and saying, oh, okay. And it doesn't register apart from, unless there's an exceptional person in the team. But it's no one's job to protect the productivity of the individual users, the accumulation of all the users. There's no one looking out for that concern. So the problem will always persist, right? So you won't get the
No,
tools
the
that you
problem
want.
gets worse because depending at which level you are on that decision, let's be
Right,
honest, depending
right,
which level you are in the food chain,
right,
this is how you see the problem.
right,
Okay. The
right,
executive
right,
sitting
right,
on his desk, he's not thinking, okay, do I have in general, okay, do I have really the manpower hours, the resources to make this project forward? No,
right,
he has lieutenants under him and he said, I need this project moving forward. And now he pushed the problem down. And this person under him now is thinking, okay, I don't have the resources. Maybe he can come up and say, okay, I don't have the resources. Or maybe he just now need to figure it out how, with the lack of resources he have, he is going to push. And as you said on your example, that email got to the CEO.
right,
CEO is looking, the lieutenants, and those are looking for their lieutenants.
Right.
Is in most cases
Right.
for medium going up enterprise,
Right.
they are so disconnected.
Right.
I I have worked with some of these mid to large level, executive VPs and CEOs where they cannot even explain the products of the company. Explain. Okay, when you ask them, what is the product of your company? Well, we have people who do that. It's not my
Right.
job. No, 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 no,
Right.
no. You are the CEO of the company.
Right. Right. Let alone the productivity.
Well, but that's the reason I'm saying this. If you cannot explain the product, what of your company, forget about things about productivity tools and how people is doing their job or what resources they
Right.
have or lack.
Because you haven't thought through what do people need to do their best work.
Because you tend to think what you need to do your best
But I
job.
need to do my best work.
Think about the following. We are doing the podcast. You are recording the podcast. Okay. When this podcast is done, you are going to push this file to somebody who is going to edit the file.
Right.
Okay. And this person is going to edit the file, get the videos, get the audio, and push it back to you. How many times on that process have you considered, okay, what will be the easiest for this person? You thought, what was the easiest for me? I'm going to drop it in Dropbox, share the folder, and this person can drop it from there. Okay, that thinking happened. But did you have the conversation with this person? How can we make it better for you? Most likely no.
Oh, but that's even a simpler
Correct.
version of what we're talking about. Because the CEO can't talk to 10,000 people. Well, he or she
Agreed.
doesn't believe he can. He or she can, so they don't. Which means, but it's not the only. This isn't the only area in which there are problems because I've seen it also with space allocation by putting people in bullpens and saying, oh, they get a proposal from facilities. Facilities says we can cut our cost per square foot in half by doing away with individual cubicles and putting everybody in a big open space and having them share desks and hot desk and come in the days that they work and work from home the days they don't work. We cut our expense. And the CEO goes, really? That's a good one also. Cool.
Let's go.
Sign off.
I
And
had a job. I had one of my first jobs here in the United States as a salesman. I began as a lawyer, moved to a salesman, then went to coach. But they we moved the building, and then on the new building we were all in a bullpen situation. And I went to my boss and said, I need my office back. Say, no, no, everybody will be in this beautiful open space. Okay, I'm loud. I'm aware of that. Not only that, if I my job at that time, I was a sales manager for the Americans. So I begin my job speaking in Argentina and finish my day talking with Canada. That was my job. And I'm loud. Not only that, when you speak in Spanish and you get into that the culture, it's a loud culture. The Latin culture is not exactly quiet. Okay. Canadians, you talk to them and you can almost whisper and they are good. In a Latin country, if you whisper, you will never make business. Okay. Business, the loudest guy get the deal. So I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of that first week that I got called to the CEO office. CEO, well, people is complaining about you being too loud. And I look at him and say, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to sell or you want me to be quiet? I cannot do both. So you pick.
I know
The
what he
next week I
said.
had an office with a door so I don't bother
With a
people.
door. It's a great example of until somebody complains, the CEO has decided that the bullpen is the best, the cutting back the software is the best. Um, the way we do email, most companies have no email protocols and they don't do email training. So in other words, it's a wild, wild west. So having everyone do their own thing on email, oh well. And meetings, we complain about meetings and how bad meetings are. And most companies have once again, there's no protocols and there's no training. So meetings are allowed to run amok. Anybody can have a meeting by just sending a few emails. And These are a few
Anybody,
of
any
these,
length,
any
double booking,
length,
triple
any
booking.
level, invite anyone they want and not have an agenda and say, so what are we here to talk about? They come and say, but the common thread among all of those is that it's desperately easy for executives to make decisions that impact individual productivity without even a consideration. And this sounds like the latest manifestation of a trend. If you call it a series of decisions that executives have been making that impact personal productivity without any kind of pushback or any question, because most companies, employees are not going to get together and say, we need access to task management software. That's unlikely to happen. So we're looking for, we're going to pivot to solutions in just a minute, but that one is unlikely to happen because the power structure of most companies is not set up to allow common sense like that to bubble up.
Well, and in many cases, you don't have the option. The problem is corporate has been, in, and again, this a lot of these things apply to me to large corporations. But
Yeah,
you are now allowing me to bring my device, okay? Because many organizations, they discover, oh, if we let them bring their device, we can save a bunch of money instead of spending hundreds on their cell phone plans, on the phone, and the insurance. We pay them $25. It's a great deal. Fine. Now you allow me to bring my device, but you don't allow me to use my device the best way I can. Or you
right.
allow me to bring my device, but I cannot copy and paste from your email to something else into my own device because of your security policies. So then why you're allowing me to bring my device? Give me one that is not unlocked and I can actually do work.
Right, right. So in the example that we gave of Rob, presumably Rob is looking at the future of, instead of being able to seamlessly copy and paste tasks
Mhm.
into his task management software on his laptop, now the new policies that Sue is telling him about are going to restrict him from doing that. So he's now going to have to use his smartphone and enter them one at a time, kind of
Or worse,
worse. What's worse than
yes.
that?
Well, because you are assuming that he will be able to enter into the system and carry the phone and have and interact the rest of the things on his phones. But I have seen clients where they cannot even go from the email, corporate email on their phone to copy that information and paste it into their task.
No.
Oh yeah.
You mean it's just plain evil? Is there that's a security concern as well, or it's just built that way? Is that just random
It's
software?
there are security concerns, and you are locked to even copy paste the information inside the device.
Inside your device?
I've seen clients not being able to copy paste from email to Microsoft Teams on their corporate computer
You can't copy from the corporate email to the corporate Microsoft Teams.
into the corporate machine.
And behind it, there's some IT person who's decided, yeah, sure, they don't need that.
They don't need
What do
that.
I
Let's
know?
lock that.
And nobody complains, and it goes down, and everyone is left. Call it a micro. Let's call it a micro. They have microaggressions. There's a word for that. What's a word for a micro productivity dent? Where someone makes some small decision somewhere in the bowels of IT, and it affects every single person in the company and wastes them 5 minutes a day. What do you call it? A micro what? A
I call
micro
it a disaster,
micro
but it
disaster.
happens. But it happened in many organizations where that is that luck. And the problem is not that. The problem is somebody in IT or VP level decide, okay, we need this high security level policies. Okay. So we protect the information. They did not think on the implications on this side. And what you have on the other side is the users figured it out how they're going to figure this out. So you now have the user who will come with their phone take a picture of their screenshot, okay, as a picture of the screen, so they
Right.
can text it to somebody else inside of the company. Well, there is your security through the window.
Through the window, right, right, right. It's actually worse because you're wasting their time. You're using the technology in an inappropriate way because you don't have a choice. And what do? You collect. Maybe we should pivot now into solutions because
Yeah,
given the nature of the problem for task management, the 10,000 people in the company still need to manage their tasks in a way that's effective. They can't. You don't want them
there are
using
really good
memory.
news. There are really
What
good news to
What
them,
are some
and
answers?
we need to say thanks to Google for this. Okay,
Hmm.
Google create what is called a PWA, that is basically a progressive web application, and
Okay.
it's an application that you can access through a web browser, and you can then download and create an application. Most IT, even super log systems, will allows you to install a PWA. Okay, that is great news. That means applications like Todoist will work. If you need to install, Todoist will work, Nozbe Teams will work. There are some of them that will work, and there are some of these applications, okay, who are really trying to put the same capabilities on the mobile application or the desktop application into these PWAs. Because what is the problem you find is, okay, I was able to access my task management online, but then now I cannot do the many of the things I used to do on the device. So now, yes, you access the information, but you continue crippled.
Is it because the PW is a stripped down version of what you would find on a regular laptop in a regular environment or on your phone?
No, it is just a matter of decisions from the matter of the coder. The coder can make that as powerful. Todoist Nozbe Teams, as two examples, are as powerful on the web as they are on the phone. You can do everything you
Oh,
do
okay,
on one or the other.
okay,
Not every developer company can or make that decision. And the reason I make that decision is some of these companies are two, three programmers. Okay, they don't have the manpower
oh, okay. To
to
go create a
make
web
that,
app version
or
of
some
the.
of them make the decisions. OmniFocus is one of those. Okay, I was a user for OmniFocus for many time, and I only recommend it for people who has a really specific set of conditions. You work on a Mac, you only have Apple products, and you are in a silo. And what
Because
I mean in a
there's
silo
no
is
web version of OmniFocus.
there is a web version, but it's not as powerful. There is no collaboration.
Okay,
So if you need to collaborate with somebody else, OmniFocus is already out of the window.
okay. The typical IT department would not take that into consideration because
No,
why should they? It's a level of distinction that we care about and
correct.
individuals care about deeply because they want the freedom to be able to move between environments. But the ones making the decisions actually don't care about.
No, not only that, for them means, oh, great, I was able to block everything else. That means I will need to support two or three or thousand less applications. That's a great news.
So it's easier on IT. They cut our budget and we have less people, so we don't have to support, and we leave it up to your own devices and good luck.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So with that distinction in mind, let's talk solutions. So you're Rob and you're in this awful situation. Uh, what can you do to work around?
Well, the first thing Rob needs to get is hopefully Rob's understand what is a PWA, okay? What is a progressive web application and how can install it on his system. Okay, if you can access that application on your browser for the corporation, you will be able to access the PWA. So that's the first piece of knowledge that Robert had. The problem is, even into productivity people, we are not technicals. Okay, they may
Yeah.
not have that technical knowledge. They may not know that those options exist. The option they know was I could download the application and now I cannot. And that's the first level of issue.
Okay. The first bit of
We
education that needs to happen.
there is a lot of education that need to happen into how I'm going to work with the limitations that IT happen. And really, IT has the tools to help these people and say, okay, if you use any of these applications, let us know. We will try to help. That doesn't happen, but let us know. What I have seen as a coach is people is on their own. I work with clients who, nobody has explained them how to create a folder in Outlook. Okay. And
Wow, not even that, right? Because there's no training.
there is no training. Okay. You got in there, I give you a laptop. Okay. And I'm assuming that you know how that works.
Or
Okay.
you'll figure it
And,
out. There's
and if
YouTube.
not, you will figure it out.
Oh no,
So
we blocked
the
YouTube, so you can't use that.
or go to YouTube, but don't go to YouTube in the corporate machine. Do it on
No,
your
no, you can't.
personal
No,
because
no,
we
no.
don't
Do it
want
on
you
your
to do
phone.
that. So,
Yeah.
so
We blocked
now,
that for you.
but you see all the problems you are putting, okay? And then on top of that, now you are going to push 50 to 100 emails to this person.
Right. So the first level of problem is
It's education.
if IT blocks you from downloading applications, you may have to find a preferred app that has a PWA.
Right.
Uh,
Or
uh,
check, maybe your own application have a
Maybe
PWA.
they already have it, and
Yeah,
maybe you
maybe they already
can
have it. And
get
I
by using
wish
it.
you that if they have it, it's as powerful as the desktop. That's the first thing.
That's the
But
first
really,
easy answer.
the first easy answer, but really it's a matter of education, And I remember, and I'm coming back to tell stories, so I
Uh-huh.
tell you the answer, but I
Hmm.
remember the first laptop I bought for work. Okay, the first laptop I worked was a tablet PC, and yes, I just dropped my ID with my date of birth, but uh, okay. And I had a Dell machine, and I went to my boss and said, "Will you authorize me to put this machine into the network?" And he was looking at me like, "Why?" I said, "Well, because this will allow me when I'm doing, I spend my day on a screen. I spend my day talking to clients. Instead of having the wall, I will be able to flip this screen. I will be able to take notes with a pencil. I will be able to twist the thing around." Okay. I'm not asking the company to buy. I understand that's not going to happen. I'm asking you to sign the authorization so I can bring the computer in. And he did. And he never understood it.
He never, to this day, he didn't know
He
what he
said,
signed.
correct.
He just
So
trusted you.
the issue is the first step line of defense is education. Okay. And you may be able to have the tools to do it yourself, or you may need to find a person like me, a coach who can help you to improve and fine tune your solutions.
So you would be, as a coach, you would be an intermediary between the person you're coaching and their company,
That is
because
correct.
you'd have to give this person, say you were coaching yourself back in the day, and you had the tablet, and you said, I want to use it at work. And as the coach, you would have to say to that person, okay, let me break it down for you in English so you can understand. But let's craft a conversation that you have with your boss, because he or
That's
she
correct.
needs to be literate. You need to raise his level of education and understanding, because without the level of, let's call it productivity literacy, without
Correct. It's
the right
productivity
level,
literacy.
oh, I'm going to call that that's our first insight. Do you hear that? Yes.
I got a bell.
Productivity literacy. Okay. Because if you can't be at that level and your boss can't be at the same level, you can't have a conversation.
Correct.
You can't have a productive. No, you convinced your boss to sign the authorization. And he said, he probably said, I have no idea what I'm signing, but I signed anyway. So his literacy wasn't there, because he did next person who comes along, he's like, what? So there's something companies need to do to raise the literacy of employees and managers so that they can have these conversations about productivity. Because it's not about security, and it's also not about just putting your computer on the network. It's not a technical activity
It's
that
not a
you're
technical
really
activity, it's a
engaged in.
productivity issue.
The motive
And I
is
can
a
bring you another
productivity issue,
example. I
right?
had a client some years back where this person travels or used to travel pre-pandemic, at least. I don't know what he's traveling today, but pre-pandemic, this person was traveling 200 to 250 days a year. Okay, so he lived basically on a plane, and he was jogging this PC laptop. Okay, that really 90% of his job was email. Okay, the other 10% of his job was checking PowerPoints and Excel. There, he didn't have any need for that low power, low battery machine that he had.
Mhm.
So he asked for an iPad. And the response of his boss was, an iPad is an entertainment device. We don't need it. Okay.
That's illiteracy.
That is
Productivity
exactly.
illiteracy.
So he and I worked together into build the pilot. And that's what we did. We went, he and I worked together. We went to his boss and proposed a pilot. We're going to buy this iPad. You're going to approve it. And we're going to test it and show
Like
how
a
the product can
pilot
be
program.
correct. A pilot
So it
program.
should,
Correct.
and it was a productivity program, therefore,
Correct.
to show the impact of an iPad on the group or the department's productivity.
Correct. Okay.
Wow.
And what ended up happening is out of the three or four, there were four VPs on that group. This is in a large company. Okay. Out of the four, three of them end up with an iPad and digital laptops. Why? Because now they move from a machine that has at the time, this is some
Mhm.
years back. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
3 hours of battery to a machine that can last almost all day. That they could be way more effective, that they could just put a keyboard and be as
So they
powerful.
so they all became literate as a result of the
Correct.
intervention. And they all could talk about being more productive by using the right devices in the right way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that is the first step is you need to understand what are the limitations of the company. And if they don't have that education, well, then it's your job to raise it. And if that means you need to buy the first device to get the approval, take it as an investment on you. This is one of the things that I see so much with people. Who say, oh, well, I really need a scanner. Have you asked the corporation to get your scanner? Well, yes, but they will not buy it. Okay. So let me ask you this. How long it takes you to do the job without the scanner? Okay. And then you get this ridiculous answer in some cases. Well, it's take me 3 hours today.
Right.
Okay. And if you get the scanner, how much will be? Oh, it will be 25 minutes. Okay. So you tell me you are going to save 2.5 hours a day if you get the scanner. The corporations say no, but you are not making the investment. Sorry, forget about the company. Make the investment out of your own pocket because in the worst case scenario, you are saving 2.5 hours of work that you can think, that you can do better work, that you can do many things. And that is the second important insight. If the corporation can't be educated and don't want to
Don't
be
want to be.
educated,
Hmm.
okay, then you need to understand if this investment is going to be better for you. Because if
Hmm.
you do a tedious work that you can automate because you are going to invest $250 in a scanner, do it. Because in the end of a year, the return on investment of that is massive.
No, I like what you're saying because most employees, what you're intimating is that they don't think that way.
No.
They would keep on complaining for years, actually, and keep on being ineffective and keep having to work overtime. Keep having to work harder and keep having to have more stress. When if they had bought the solution themselves, they actually would have avoided all of that. But to there's kind of it's a little bit of an entitlement kind of thinking, which is that if I can't get it from the management, therefore I can't get it at all. And that's the end. But in the rest of their life, they're normal. They would, the
Yeah,
car
yeah,
needs new
they're
tires. I
stuck
go
in
buy
that
new
box.
tires. I don't think about it.
I have walked into corporations, you hear people complaining, the headphones, oh, the headset they give me for this to work is so bad. Hold on. A headset is less than $100. Okay.
Hmm.
You spend 8 hours of your life 5 times a week in here. You cannot spend $1 an hour. Okay, in 3 weeks you will save $120 and buy the headset that you want, that is going to be comfortable, that is going to allow you to do your work more. If you cannot make that connection, you are also part of the problem.
Okay, we need a name for this thinking where you think practically about your solutions that you need, and you think and you take responsibility for it if necessary.
Responsibility, correct.
What would you call it? Let's give it a phrase that way I can ring the bell. It, it's like
You need to be
personal.
responsible for your own productivity.
All right. Well, the idea is there, so I'm going to give that a ding because it's most people in companies don't. They believe productivity is something almost like it's given to me by, or it's shaped for me by my environment, and it's
But then
given
they
and taken
complain
away at
about the
will.
environment.
Yeah, that's right. That's and the game goes on, right? People at the lunchroom saying, "Can you believe this nonsense? They restricted our access to the web, and now we have to do this, and now we have to do that." Whereas if they could actually make an investment and actually improve their productivity on their own, and it would actually make a. Often I find people think about productivity in the office different from productivity in their life. They draw this false, they put a false wall in place, and they think
That is
that
correct. When I wrote 25 tips for productivity,
uh-huh,
when I wrote 25 tips for productivity, I talk about that. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And
right,
there is so many people stuck
right,
into their companies because they are not asking the question. And the questions are
right.
not asked for three reasons. Reason number one is because I don't know what is the question I need to ask.
No
Okay, I know
literacy.
I hate this PC, but I
Right,
don't know how to ask that I want something different. Or
right, right,
okay, or what are the options that I can produce to the company.
right,
So
right,
we go back to that education.
right,
Second is you need to look into, even if they say no, how can I improve my own productivity? How can I do this job better? You know, how can I, what are the tools that I need, provided or not provided, that are
right,
going to allow me to be better at what
right,
I'm doing?
right, right. Even if I have to
Because
get them. Right,
even if I need to get them,
right,
okay, they're yours. If you leave the company, you pack them in your box.
right. Someone who
Okay,
willingly
you're going to
spend
use them in the next job, most likely.
right, right. Someone who willingly spend thousands on a car that gets them to work 5% faster or 2% more safely, or but to spend $100 on a headset is like,
Oh
oh
no,
no,
100 bucks.
oh no.
So those are two problems. You need to go and educate the organization, and you need to go and look what are the tools that are going to allow you to do your job better. If
Right,
you don't look at those 2 points, then you are just deciding that you are going to be a victim of the environment and the circumstances. And by the way, there is people who is perfectly happy. They're not listening to this show, but they're perfectly happy with being in that position. This
right,
show is not for them. This show is for the other part, the part that is frustrated, the Rob who is frustrated and is trying to how I'm going to solve this problem. And sometimes it's okay not to have the answer to the problem. It is
but
okay to say, okay, I need a coach. I need a digital coach. I need somebody who I can call and bounce this. Sometimes you have the friends,
a,
sometimes you don't. It is
a,
fine.
a friendly
But
third party.
then find what are those resources, invest the hour conversation, the half an hour conversation with this person. Go to Reddit if you are geeky enough and ask the question. But
Right,
if you are not willing to educate the corporation, and again, in many cases, corporation will not change or be allowed to be educated. Okay, you try door number one, check. Now go to number two. How can I make this better for myself? Check. I if you don't take your own personal productivity on your hands. The organization will not. The organization is looking how we're going to reduce cost,
right,
and they want you to do more. So
right.
figure it out how you are going to balance those two.
Right. Let me ask you. Let me put a closing comment as we start to wrap up, which is that you're right. Some of the people listening to this are going to be employees. Some are not going to have employees. They're just going to be solos. A lot of people who care a lot about productivity leave companies because they're more productive outside and they can't bear to be so unproductive working for somebody else. And
Mhm.
that's a fact with lots of people. But I'm hoping that we'll also be talking to managers. So there are managers, right, who are right now messing and creating a hash and getting them in the way of their employees' productivity
Right.
because they don't have the education. And I'm hoping as they're listening, they're willing to go back and have a conversation with employees, which kind of looks like, tell me something, guys. Are there some obvious ways you could be more productive if I kind of just did a few things differently? They say, yes! To have that, to
I
initiate that conversation if you're a manager with your
exactly.
reports.
And if you don't know, look for the help. I had a client in Virginia, it's a nonprofit, and the director of this nonprofit is not a tech person. Okay, it's she's amazing at what she do, but she's not a tech person. So I went there, worked with her, how we were going to help her team to work, and not only that, and how her team was going to help her. Okay, with the limitations that she had on technology, okay, knowledge, and that she was willing to do or not do, how they were going to work as a team. And that was a brilliant move. She did not know how to explain to them what were their limitations were.
Right,
So what we did was what we sit the whole team and train the whole team how to really make this work. We change the tools, we make it so they're open and collaborative. And now what was a weakest link, what was
right,
a cog in the system, we
right,
were able to turn it around and make it something where now everybody is affected.
right. Because and I imagine that he or she, I guess, had to maybe also go to IT and say, listen, I had a meeting with my team and I asked them what they need to be productive, and they say they need A, B, and C, and
Yeah.
IT has created it, made it difficult for them to get what they want in order to be
Well,
productive.
it was really difficult. The first thing that she wanted to do was change their old laptops for Surface. Okay, and they did it. They end up having Surface for her team. Okay, but IT said no, we're not going to do, and we needed to build together the case why there was a difference and why they needed to do it, and at the end they won the case.
Because ultimately it's a question of productivity first. That's
Right.
that's 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 how the company. But when you know what the product of the company is, then you care about productivity. But when you don't know, then it's easy to get sideswiped by, oh no, services cost too much to maintain. Oh no, we don't have anybody who knows Surface well enough to provide support. Oh no,
Correct.
Surfaces, we're not sure about the security then all those other arguments win over because executives aren't appropriately focused on what they should be focused on.
Well, and that's not their job. That's so. Let's be honest. That's the executive in this example, this case. That was not her job. Okay, she needed them the tool, or she didn't have the knowledge. What she did great was she found the outside help to bring her
Right,
team help to the team when she felt the internal team was not helping. She
right,
again she educated herself. She
right,
failed to educate the corporation because she didn't
right,
have the knowledge, and
right,
the IT didn't give them. So she went on her own, educate herself, willing to get the first surface was her own.
right,
They tested, and
right,
then they came now overeducated and win the
right,
case with the company.
right. And guys, if you're listening into the podcast or watching the video and you're thinking, I don't know if that applies to me. Think of anybody who you work with that you may be impinging their productivity, and it may benefit you to ask the question, what am I doing, or what could I do, or what could we do in order to raise the productivity of us working together as a team or even as a team of two people. Wow. So Augusto, having now we got a couple of dings in which tell us that we've got some good insights up. What's
No
how can
buzzer.
folks how can folks get a hold of you?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is at Productivity Voice, www.productivityvoice.com. There are all my social media, all my contacts, emails, and everything else.
Great. Augusto, thanks for coming on the Task Management and Time Blocking podcast. I appreciate your willingness to think inside out and to tackle this problem kind of from the ground up, so that our listeners can really benefit from hearing us have these kinds of conversations that they got otherwise wouldn't hear. So thanks a lot, my friend. How you
It's my
go?
pleasure, my friend.
Okay. Show isn't over. Stay tuned. There's a couple more notes that are coming up in just a moment. During my discussion with Augusto Pinaud, you may have been wondering, well, I don't work for a company, but my progress and my growth still isn't where I want it to be. Well, here's a clip from the next episode of the podcast.
But you have a sort of inner drive to keep growing, keep learning, and keep getting better. And to feel as if that has stopped is almost like, on a personal level, kind of feeling defeated if you're all about growth.
That's my voice, Francis Wade. I'm the guest in the next episode of the Task Management and Time Blocking Podcast. And if you want to leave a comment about this episode or any aspect of the work that we're doing here at the Task Management and Time Blocking Podcast, you can go over to www.replytofrancis.info and send me either a message by text or send me a voice message, a voice note. And as you probably know, we have a couple of places that you can interact with other people, talk about this episode. One is at the community, mightytaskers.scheduleu.org, and you'll see the link in the show notes. And the other, of course, is our upcoming Task Management and Time Blocking Summit coming up in March. Two outstanding opportunities to interact with other people about the ideas that you've heard on this podcast or any of our episodes that are coming up. And if you'd like to support the work we're doing, I invite you to click on the Patreon link below to make a donation. And please don't forget to like our show and recommend it to others on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, or whatever podcast app or service you're using. This is Francis Wade. I'm signing out. I hope to see you on a future episode. And until then, take care and all the best. See you later.